I first want to welcome everybody, our international public and also our residents in Fabrica. We have a real pleasure to welcome today to Tarik Barri, who is gonna give a lecture. I'm gonna do a little introduction, and I'm really happy that Tarik is doing this lecture, part of this Otherworlding program that we are having at Fabrica. I believe that Tarik is one of the most interesting artists working today on the crossover of image and sound, and developing new attitudes to notions and ideas of what he calls the visual music. I think that one of the important also achievements of Tarik's work is development of a software that he did called Versum, who is actually a way for him to compose music through visual techniques or methods, where he creates this sort of 3D real-time virtual world that allows him to actually create, compose visual and music at the same time. And in a way, he's advancing, I believe, the symbiosis of seeing and hearing, and also pushing further our synesthetic abilities as viewers and spectators. Barry has collaborated with yes, maybe can we ask people to put down the volume? There's some people. Okay, sorry. So just to name a few of the collaborations that Tarik Barri has developed through the years, especially with Radiohead and of course Thom Yorke, Atoms for Peace, Iranian musician Sote, Nicholas Jar, Robert Henke, aka Mono Lake, Paul Jebanasam, just to name a few of the musicians with whom Tarik Barri has developed the visuals and work and tour around the world. And what to say, thank you very much, Tarik, for accepting our invitation, and let's welcome you to our Fabrica community. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, very, very nice words. And yeah, sure, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, because I actually really enjoy sharing my ideas. Like I'm sharing my art, and that's, yeah, as I'm sharing my art on the stage, that's one way of sharing my ideas, but also very much like thinking about it and also expressing my thoughts. And yeah, this is a great avenue. I've lately become more and more interested in this kind of stuff. So yeah, awesome, nice timing. I have a lot of time, and I have a lot of appetite for this. So yeah, my name is Tarik Barri, and I basically started out as a as a kid, and I was programming quite a bit when I was quite young, and that's because I was mostly isolated from my peers, because I was living in Saudi Arabia. My parents, they moved there. It was hot. I was bored, and there was a lot of yeah, a lot of nothing, basically, sort of like a vacuum in which I was living for my own experience, which I'm sure made it hard for me to later on become a proper social being. But it did allow me to try and become very creative in trying to solve this huge issue of my brain not being stimulated. And fortunately, there was a computer that my father had bought, and this really yeah, this at some point I discovered that I could create sounds and that I could create visuals with it. Well, of course, visuals at that time, it was just basically pixels moving across and changing colors, but still that was something that I could use to just to basically make tiny little games with, and just this whole concept of being able to tell the computer what to do, and also how to get your own human-like ideas. Like I want it to be great, or I want something to be fast or smooth or cool or whatever, how to break that down into all the little components so that a computer can also understand what you mean by that. There's a whole huge translation and you know, cross communication between the halves of the brain in order to make that work. And I'm happy that I got that from a young age. So that it became natural for me. I never was, I still am not a genius programmer. I never was. I don't even think that I was extraordinarily large talent or something. It's just, I just think that I was lucky to be in a situation where very young, these things were still stimulated, so that it became, I guess it's maybe like it's basically just something that I've done for a long time, and I think it's kind of rare in general that people who have creative abilities in some degree to also have a very strong technical background. I'm not saying that they exclude each other at all, but often they're, for some reason, I don't know how it works genetically, psychologically, but it seems often that people who are more technically minded tend to go into a certain type of aesthetics that might be very different from how people who are less technically minded are. And sort of like be able to form that bridge, I think, within my own brain, I think has been a major luck that came with me being isolated in my youth, and having that computer next to me. And basically also that bridge is also very much what I'm going to be moving towards, as later on I'm going to be talking about the video sync, which is this software that I've been creating together with my colleagues from ShowSync, in order to also gap that bridge, to make it possible for people who are not programmers to still get a large portion of that power that programmers normally would have when it comes to combining visuals and sound in interesting ways that you can define for yourself. But yeah, the most powerful form of defining stuff for yourself within a computer is, of course, still programming, getting into the code, but it's also a very slow and tedious process, and it's not for everyone. And it's a shame to lock people out who are not that technical. And so that's what we are creating this for. Myself, my own background. Why am I here? Why did I start doing this? Why am I so interested in this? Well, that was indeed this thing with starting out as a kid with the computer. I then came back to the Netherlands, had to basically reintegrate, become a normal kid again, learn how to deal with others without getting bullied, which was a challenge. And I slowly, as I got into high school, got into making music with the computer, which was basically a lot of sample-based work, a lot of cutting and pasting and speeding up samples and slowing them down and making music out of that. And I also, at the same time, was definitely interested in drawing and painting and everything. So I took that as as one of the, how do you call it, subjects in high school. So I was doing that in high school. In my free time, I was making music. At some point, I was going to, I had to, I was finished, so I needed to find a study to do. And being an artist somehow was not a thing that I mean, very vague in the distance. It seemed like that could be potentially cool, but I didn't think that was really something for me, because it felt like artists are other beings than I am. Yeah, I'm very happy that I ended up being one. Also, because now I can see that being an artist is something completely different than what I thought it was. In the sense that, sure, it takes a lot of effort and everything, but also you don't have to be as fundamentally a different type of creature than a regular human being as I initially thought you needed to be. I guess it's, sorry, now I'm going on tangents, but I do think it's an important tangent. I think that there's a big issue with also often how artists present themselves. Also, it also goes down to even how funding works. People often write incomprehensible texts with a lot of words that sound very interesting, well, to some, and funders there might sometimes be a higher chance of people who provide funding to give you money for that reason. And I think that in general, it's great to always try and make as much sense as possible, even when you're speaking with funders. But I get that sometimes you also need to compromise to some degree, and that maybe makes sense that you drop some of those buzzwords. But then there's the funders, and then there's also just the people that you communicate with in your words, or the people that when you have a text at your exhibition space or whatever. I think that is a nice point to at least there really make sure that you actually communicate with people. Because why did I think that I could be an artist? I think that a lot of that was because there was so much of this incomprehensible stuff floating around, and also these very exaggerated ideas of creativity being the only thing that mattered in your life. And if I wouldn't do this, then I would immediately just die or whatever. And I guess there's some people who are like that, but I never felt that in that way. That's why I thought I was, by definition, disqualified from doing this incredibly lofty thing. I had a huge respect for this field, but it was a little bit almost like overdone, that amount of respect. Like, I can be completely fallible and just not know what the hell I'm doing, and not even be sure. Like, I could be a psychologist, I could be an architect. There's a lot of things that I could be. Like, now it's kind of like defined what I am, but back then it didn't feel like there was this destiny that was pushing me forward. So just to sort of like dispel that idea that should be at the core of it all. So that's my tangent. Yeah, so I went into architecture because I thought I couldn't be an artist, but maybe I could use that as a way to do something cool with things that look nice. And but yeah, I wasn't really interested in architecture, actually. Unfortunately, I was interested in making things that look nice, and I was interested in doing some things that maybe had to do something with math, but somehow making buildings stand upright and not collapse, which is of course super important. That was not really something I found super interesting. So then I did psychology because I did find the ways that people think, the way that I thought. I found all that interesting to study. I think that is something that I could have actually continued in, if not for the fact that I was also still making music, just by myself in electronic music. And I had a label owner who at some point had heard some of that, put it on a collection, on a CD that had a collection of artists. And one of those one of those tracks of that collection was played by John Peel, this radio on BBC, on the BBC radio, this DJ on the BBC radio, and he chose my track specifically, which is apparently this big deal. So I was super honored, and that was one moment where finally it started dawning on me that maybe there is something from the outside world, maybe something's trying to tell me that maybe I should try and take this more seriously. So that was finally when I decided to study audio design in Hilversum as part of the Utrecht Art Academy, and I started making music for my studies, and then later on for a job as well. So during the study, I learned how to combine programming and programming and making music, and basically also creating sounds from code. I got introduced to this programming language called Max MSP, and Max MSP allowed me to use code and abstract ideas to convert them into sounds and compositions, and all kind of interesting interesting things could come together within that software, including also visuals. I could also import visuals from a webcam or wherever, but I could also create visuals with Max MSP. And this discovery that I could combine all of that, and that there was a potential to maybe make work that is similar to, in some ways, what Alexander Rutherford and Ottaker did. Well, this is basically a video clip. Am I thinking now? Yeah, maybe I'm going to show it. Let me look right now. And graph. Whoa, was that very loud? Did anybody hear that? Okay, let's see.
Maybe you have to share the screen, maybe.
Yeah, of course, that is going to be a big issue. Yes, exactly. And then I can also choose the sound. See, I'm not even that experienced yet with Zoom. Yes. Okay, let's make this not too loud. So yeah, this is like one inspiration of a video clip where, as I discovered that I could combine visuals and sound creation at the same time. Oh, yes, the website so that I could combine these things. I think somebody needs to be muted. A new participant. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. So now I'm going to show this video clip, and first I need to have this sound muted. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I'm not continuing just because there's lack of time. Otherwise, I'd be very happy to show this thing in its totality. So that was Guns Graf by Oldtaker with the video clip by Alexander Rutherford, which actually was, I found out later, not programmed at all. This was all done in, I don't know if even how it was done exactly, but I do know that the artist, Alexander Rutherford, basically had a big sheet with all the times when specific events happened within the music, and really made this whole composition, this visual composition, based on the music, which I think is basically, yeah, it's a really great thing. That that is also all in a way very, very human what he did there. But what I realized as I was getting my first little three-dimensional cube to rotate based on the sound that was coming into the microphone through Max MSP, I all of a sudden had these like visions of like, oh my God, I could do stuff similar to this maybe someday, something that would come somewhere in the neighborhood of that stuff that I know. So yeah, that was actually really a moment where finally a lot of my different interests and ideas sort of like converged and became one thing. Like all of a sudden I could do the whole drawing and painting thing, I could do the music thing, I could do the programming thing. And that was basically also a moment where finally that's the first point where I actually properly became fully obsessed with what I was doing. I had moments of obsession that I had before, but now that I could just get all of my hobbies and interests, basically all of that into one spot, yeah, I became obsessed and yeah, went wild with this thing. So I finished my studies with basically a three-dimensional composition system, an audiovisual composition system, which I called, well, initially I called it Systeem, which is Dutch for system, not surprisingly. And later on I called it Versum. And this is a three-dimensional sequencer where there's objects placed inside a virtual three-dimensional space. These objects can be seen, can be heard, and as I'm flying past all of these objects with my joystick, they become louder in volume as they come closer, and then they can disappear into the distance as other objects are further ahead of me, and then I can fly towards them and check out what they sound like. So you can have a rhythm over here and maybe a bunch of other notes over there, which are just a melody. So I could decide to go to the melody or just to go to the rhythm, or first go to the rhythm and then to the melody or whatever, or hover in between the two. So I could hear a little bit the rhythm to the left and the melody to the right. This was basically just a way to have, basically to translate spatial composition into time composition, because it's how I travel through space that determines how the musical composition, how the audio would be presented in time. So this was really also a very big learning tool for myself. As I was creating it, of course, I was also learning it, how all these worlds of audio and visuals and space can be connected in different ways. And I am going to show you another little video of a composition, basically, well, of a live set that I did a short time ago in London with Lea Fabricant, where we are using this system, because I'm still working with that, this Versum system, and she creates loops in audiovisual space, in this virtual audiovisual space. So she has a webcam directed at her, she has a microphone, she has a loop pedal, she presses it, she sings something, and it becomes a loop. But not just an audio loop, it becomes an audio visual loop. So you see her face singing this thing on repeat inside my virtual space. Then she sings another thing, yet another thing, yet another thing, and you get a whole choir of her, of hers, multiple hers, that I can fly through and just go through the loops that she, maybe the ones that she made the last, or some other of the other loops that she made first. I can fly back and forth. And she also has a keyboard that she plays, and those notes translate into lines that also create sound within this virtual space. I'm just going to show you a little bit so it doesn't get too abstract. Yes, share screen. Now let me see if this was actually correct. Share again, share screen. Yes, with sound, cool. Oh yes, and there is this this semi-transparent screen in front of us. So basically, what you're seeing right here is just a camera feed. It's just somebody who recorded this from the audience perspective. But it was the semi-transparent screen in between us, Lea, me, and the audience, and this here is being projected onto that semi-transparent screen. This is a really shitty edit. Basically, it's not really a proper edit yet. You still need to make it into a nice little promo. But yes, you can see some of the lines here, which are basically notes that she played and are now being repeated on loop within the space. And those lines, I think it was nice about them is they really give a sense of perspective, of depth. And we can also apply all kinds of effects on top of all the loops, where at some point you have like these very short envelopes placed on top of the sound. So you have a longer sound, but only you very little points of it, you actually make them audible. So to becomes like a and that's what you're seeing here. And then we also made that all the effects are both audible, so you can hear them and you can see them as well. So this is like one of the interpretations we gave to what does it look like when the sound gets chopped up. And what does it look like when her voice gets chopped up? So, oh, yes. So that shall later on become a nicer edit. Yes, let's see the time. Okay, so I'm just going to go straight on to another performance that I did with Thom Yorke a longer time ago. Well, like 3 years ago. Thom Yorke and Nigel Godrich. Let's not forget him, because Nigel is actually, he's basically half of Thom Yorke, to be honest. Let's see, where was it again? Now we need to Google myself. Tomorrow's modern boxes. Yeah, there we are. Cool. Yeah, and actually one important point. One point I wanted to make about this year, as I'm basically also going to transition into yeah, okay, so I'm just going to stop screen sharing for a second. What I wanted to say right now is about visuals and about how I got into it. So you see now how I transitioned from pure music and to making these very audiovisual works. And I'm also very interested in making pure visuals as well, as I'm doing right now. And for me, the whole distinction between pure visuals and making music has disappeared, also thanks to the way that I came into it. And for me, it was just, how did I even come to visuals? Just because I'd already experienced through video clips, basically, how what I'm seeing can completely change what I'm hearing, and sound can sometimes, if it's done right, can very much enrich the listening experience, just like sound will enrich my viewing experience. And for me, it was always just one in a very natural sense. It's only later that I then came up with the fact that, oh, actually, maybe I should just call that visual music, because that's exactly what it is. I know that visual music, it's a term I didn't invent it. It's existed since a long time. It's been used in different contexts. But for me, what it means is just simply the layer of music that is perceived through the eyes. Not always is it perceived is visuals being perceived as music through the eyes. It's very much also about what happens in the brain, how your brain connects all these things. Like, for instance, I could be listening to a piece of music and there could be an ambulance coming by outside. I'm not going to perceive that ambulance as being part of music, unless maybe coincidentally it really nicely fits by coincidence, then it could happen. But normally there's a separation. There's parts of my experience which are music and others which aren't. And if the parts that are music are too dominant, then it just screws up my listening experience. The same also with visuals. If the visuals that I'm seeing are not part of the musical experience I'm having, it screws up my music listening experience. And that's where I think that it becomes very, very important not to do that. Because honestly, it's actually quite hard to make visuals that don't, yeah, that it's okay. What am I trying to say? It's not necessarily even super hard to make visuals that work with the music, but I guess that often people miss what the essential element is of making them connect, and that is time. Basically, often you got your musical engine, you got your Ableton Live or whatever, and then you got some video player, and you can mix layers and everything. And if you do this very skillfully and with a very sensitive musical ear, and of course the musical eye in that sense, then you can really make them work together very well. But very often the way that that visual people deal with time, or that they listen to music, feels like it's a little bit disconnected. So then you get these things like where at some point, yeah, all the visuals are nicely cobbling along, and then comes the hard part of the rocky part of the song, and then all of a sudden everything goes flash, 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 and then the calm part starts again, and then we go back to the other thing. And it is so brutal very often. It is so unmusical in a way, and that disrupts my experience. And just as a very crude approximation of what the music is doing, it can work kind of, but there's so much that's being lost in how much deeper you can take people into the experience by being more sensitive to that. And so there's a type of sensitivity, I think, in a human being who's doing it that's required. But of course, first there needs to be even awareness that that is a thing, that you can be that sensitive, that it actually matters for what you're doing visually. But there's also the technical way in which this is actually very important, that it should even be possible to connect to musical time inside the visuals, which again leads next to each other. You have got your musical tracks and you got your video tracks. They all live next to each other, and you can really work very specifically with the combination, almost as both as a way to make cool stuff with, but also as a way to just train your own eyes and ears with, to actually become used to that combination within the computer. And also that combination is not even that new or that spectacular, because timed visuals and audio, that is something you see in real life all the time. I would almost argue that within concert settings, we have sometimes maybe even learned to unlink them. Like, oh, it's completely normal apparently that what we're seeing is completely different from what we're seeing. Actually, maybe it's just so if you reconnect them again, you just also connect it to something that's very basic to human experience. Which is super rewarding. What I wanted to show this current video with me and Thom Yorke and Nigel Godrich, was also to show that I think the visuals here are not spectacular or great at all. Like, they're colorful, they're big, which is great, but actually it is actually, it's not that great. If you have a still image, it's just a bunch of lines. But it's really the flow that I think makes this work. And I think that is also why I think that maybe if I had to choose, I don't have to choose, but if I would have to choose between, would I rather see a musician making visuals or somebody who knows nothing about visuals making but all about music? If I would rather see them making visuals, or somebody who knows all about visuals but nothing about music, if I would want to see them making, I think I would choose the musician because way to just make very clear like how fundamental that really is, I think. So yeah, here's a little bit of that flow. Share. Now I need to figure out how to share my screen again. There. So yeah, that's a whole visual composition, just a bunch of lines which are at specific times turning and then shaking again and turning, etc. I think that can work really nicely. It's also really nice to go super complex in your imagery, etc. But yeah, again, if I had to choose, then it's much more about the timing. So to get into that, and also yeah, how to get the timing right, and how else maybe you guys, girls, can do all of this yourself. Let's go into video sync. Share screen again. No, wrong. Also go away. Okay, cool. I'm going to start a new set. Okay, so this is going to be sort of like a super crash course. It's not even a course, it's just a little demonstration of what can be done. Because of course I'm not going to be able to really teach you something. So just very, very shortly. This here is VideoSync. It's this software that acts as a visual add-on to Ableton. And this year's Ableton Live, which is a music sequencer. Basically, you can create music inside this thing. So normally you would drag, for instance, a musical instrument in here. Let's just do something really simple. Instruments, operator. Let's make some notes here. And play. Are people hearing that? Cool, awesome. Okay, so yeah, that's Ableton. You can make you can put notes inside a grid and play music with that. And also, what you can do there, for instance, is you can then add an effect on top of that, audio effect, reverb, ballad reverb, why not? So yeah, you go to your instruments and you go to your effects. That is standard Ableton. Now, however, with VideoSync, which is just an application that I start. Well, let me just see. I got Ableton Live running. That's this here. Then I can just click on VideoSync. A little screen appears, and I can now use Ableton to determine what appears within this little screen. So here comes. Let's do the external in. Another instrument. This is a visual instrument, and this here's the little video sync device called external in. Let's get the camera input. I wanted to scale to fill because I want to have the black bars on the top and the bottom. Okay, cool. There we are. So hello, this is video sync. And what you can do is also drag effects on top of that, like this wavy effect, for instance. And so you got your instrument, which creates the visual, and then you got your effects, which can distort the visual in different ways. Yeah, and it's really that simple. You can also drag. You can Oh yeah, what you can also do is you go to your tracks. The volume, if we adapt the volume of the track, this will just go on and off. This here is a mute button, so you can mute the track. The whole idea of video sync is that it follows the exact same signal path, exact same flow as audio would do. So you can just basically use it in the same way that you use that you create music here. Let me think now. Yeah, okay. What I can now also show is another type of instrument. Actually, maybe what I also want to show. Yeah, that's also what I'm going to do. Video sync material. Let's get this guy in here. Lip sync blue screen. So I can also drag a video in here. I'm going to mute myself for a second. Just play this guy.
Alcoholic rain will water earth's soil with whiskey, now perusing
so
on...
you see that immediately just starts playing when you drag a video in there as well. And what I like is that Ableton has its warping engine, which basically means that you can just determine the timing and you can just stretch wave files. But this will also automatically also apply to the video.
Alcoholic rain will water earth's soil with whiskey, now perusing...
So again, another example of how it's very much made to completely follow the natural workflow of Ableton. So actually I don't want to have simpler in here. I'm going to have another instrument in here. Squares. There's a device that allows me to make super simple squares. Yeah, here we go. Nice. I'm going to play this little loop over here. So now it's just one note. Come on, play. Thank you. Yes. So this is the square. Let me add an effect on top of that. Well, square is rectangular at this point, but let me add a little effect on it. Transform. I want to make it a little bit, no, I want to make it a little bit thinner. And I want it to, what do I want? I want its position. I'm gonna just attach this to a little knob. I have a keyboard here. Can you see me? Can you see my face, by the way, to the side of the screen or something? Yeah, awesome. So here's my little keyboard. I'm gonna have this little knob and make this. Wait, I'm gonna have this little knob here. This exactly. Yes. Basically, I just taught Ableton Live to make this knob move this this little square around. So. Sorry, I'm calling it a square, but of course it's a rectangle. So now I'm having this thing on my slider over here. I'm gonna make another knob determine the rotation. So there we go, up, down. Yeah. Okay, this feels nice. I can go up and down. Great. So yeah, you already see how you can just nicely, work, be very spontaneous in your creation of imagery. What I can also do, for instance, is go into a timeline. Well, basically, you can just automate these things, and to automate means to automatically determine the ways that these things move in time. People are used to this from music, that they can automate how musical events are taking place in time. Now you can also just do the exact same thing with visuals. Now let's do something interesting with this. So we got this, I can move it around. What I really like is feedback. So as I'm saying, basically normally you can determine how the audio is being routed. Does it go straight to the speakers, to the master bus, or do you send it to another track first? So I first send it to senders only. Let's send it to send A. Great. Here we have send A. Now let's send it from send A to send B, and from send B back to send A again. And let's move this thingy around again. Let's see. Yeah, you see that now there's some trails appearing because I created a feedback loop. I'm sending basically from my initial track to one of these tracks. It goes to the other track. It goes back and forth. So I'm creating a feedback loop. Now that's neat in itself, but what's also cool is that if I then add some effects in between, inside that feedback loop, let's make it a little bit smaller. Okay, like this. Yeah, so now I'm making it smaller in every little step along that feedback loop. It's basically like when you're pointing your camera at a TV and that TV shows that image of the TV, then you get a TV and a TV and a TV and a TV. That's basically a natural sense. You're seeing the exact same process occurring right here. So let me just change the wrap mode that once it reaches the edge of its image, it will mirror the image again. Great. There you go. Okay, that's nice. So up and down. And now let's add a little bit of rotation. Let's have a rotated, let's turn the camera. If you tilt the TV and the TV thing a little bit, if you tilt the camera, you also will get that the TV start rotating in an interesting way. So now let's do that here. Yeah, something like that. Okay, now I'm just gonna still play around with my knob. So right now I'm just having this whole very fluid motion that's happening thanks to this feedback loop. And you can play with all kind of cool stuff. And again, all of this is of course just with one little line that I'm rotating. There's obviously shitloads of more things that can be done here, but this is just to give an impression of just how rich it is with even the most basic of ingredients. Let's see. There's actually a bunch of more stuff that I want to show, but which I can't show because of the whole time thing. But I'm just going to go straight to the last one that I wanted to show. Here you see that I made a little timeline. Okay. Here I made a little timeline with notes and everything. I made, okay, let me rename this one. This is V webcam. I have a bunch of tracks. Some of them I called V webcam, V lava, V tabula, and here's A dancehall, A wavetable. These are my audio tracks with the A and the V with the video. I just named them so that I don't get confused myself. I could also do something more consistent with the colors to become even less confused. I now basically made these tracks which are next to each other. There's ways in which I can have single events, single notes. I can have the notes go to both audio and video, so that things are triggering both audio and video simultaneously. But also what I can do, as I did in this specific track, is not having been triggered by the same thing at all, but just having them as layers next to each other, like musical layers next to each other, which are related in time, but still each of them is doing their own thing, which I think is super interesting. And it's using the webcam image as input. Whoa, that was loud. But okay, let's make it loud, it's fine. that is a incredible loud amount of information at once. Let me first do this here. Here we see that in time I have the volume slider, which determines how this is how bright this is. So as I'm going here, I'm going to let this loop for a second, and let me loop this. Yeah, so now you see this. This is all going together. There's this how do you call this video, and let's add this one here as well. So basically it's these notes here. Now let me actually get it right next to, let me get this right next to the video track. Exactly, now you see them right next to each other. Basically here are the notes that you're hearing, these little squares, and here you see the brightness going up and down. And this is something that I like, where it also shows what I'm talking about when I'm saying that they are different layers that are connected, but not necessarily doing the same thing. This specific curve that I also want to make nice and curvy, so not linear, but like this, is something that I just chose. It's a specific artistic choice that I made. It's completely connected to what's going on in the audio, but it is not the same. And I think that can be super interesting. And also, for instance, what you see right here is that you get a connection that's basically anticipates what the sound is going to do. It goes up in this curve and then the beat happens. So then on top of that, I'm going to now introduce the tabula device, which is a device which plays, let me go here. It's a device that can play the brightness of an incoming, let me not even say that. Basically, it just does something to my face, and you can figure out later on what it does as you get into video sync. Basically, I'm playing my face with other notes. So let's go here, tabula. Come, I'm dragging you. Thank you. So here we see the notes with which I'm playing my face. These are completely coinciding with the beats in the music. So this is the one that's causing the yellow bits. I can also maybe choose to syncopate that. Let's see what happens if I do that. So let's move it a little bit. Maybe this is interesting. Actually, I like it more when it's just specifically on the beat. Okay, so let's maybe go and loop to the second one. Here we see that this is the thing that plays my face. And here, just in order to accentuate this whole boom, the stronger one, I just want to have a bunch of them because it felt like a very heavy one that would not be served well with just one specific note. So here you can see. And let's just see what else I did. I kind of forgot because I put this thing together this morning. So let's just play the whole thing. And it's going to be kind of weird. Oh yeah, sorry. Some tracks are still on solo. So let's have all of them. Yeah, so yeah, that's not a fully finished composition just yet. But yeah, you can see some nice stuff that can be done here. I guess I'm gonna just start a new set right now. There's just one little extra effect, actually maybe yeah, two that I want to very quickly show, and then I'm done with this speed presentation. These are effects that are still in development, so they're not there for the general public just yet, but I'm very proud of them because I also designed them, and they are really cool in expanding the creative possibilities that are going to be soon available for everybody who gets a video sync. So yeah, this is sort of like a sneak preview. Effects, Voronoi. Yes, here's an effect. And it is right now you can't see that as an effect. I'm going to turn it off and on. Basically, it overrides the incoming image. But it is also an effect because if I set the input mix of color and brightness up, and let me turn on the light here. Yes, let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, if I'm going to turn up the scale, you can see me appear here. Yes. So basically what this does is it creates a pattern, and I can use the incoming brightness and incoming color, but I can also ignore the incoming color and just use the incoming brightness for this effect. I make it a little bit bigger. So this is the pure effect without any influence of the incoming image. This is with only using the brightness. This is with only using the color, which is super subtle. Now with a little bit of the brightness. And there's all kind of things that I can do with this texture. I can make it move. Let's turn down the scale a little bit. Let's use a little bit of the original color. Let's make the stuff a little bit more round. And let's make it move a little bit more. And increase the saturation. So yeah, there's this effect. And I'm going to turn it off for a second. And then there's the other one, which will also become part of the same family. It's another similar type of effect where it's you can turn it on or off, and you can make it completely ignore the incoming image, make it just respond to the brightness of the incoming image, or brightness and color, and you can again see me appear here. It becomes, you can make it increase the scale, decrease it, and it starts distorting me in a really weird way. So let's have it move a little bit. I want to have it more detailed, more curvy. Let's twist it some extra times. And now what happens if I have this one effect? Okay. That's round. Let's do a little bit of this. Yeah, and now let's put that through the other one. Yeah, now you get a very interesting combination of effects. And so yeah, this is the whole idea. Yeah, something like that. And let's make it a little bit brighter because it's a little bit dark in my room right now. Here we go. More brightness. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you can still recognize me in there. Hello. Just as a little taste of how this whole domain of what is normally reserved as this fun, normally this whole fun, real-time, playful way of interacting with your medium is reserved for musicians. And our whole goal is to bring this into the world of visual people. Even if you're not interested in making visuals to music, then still at least have that idea of immediacy and real-timeness and flexibility with time. Even to just introduce that in itself is, I think, a great thing, but especially in combination with music, it becomes extra apparent to anyone, I think, what the value is for this other approach to time, and what the value is also of being able to use modern day computers which are capable of doing all this stuff. It's like in computer games, it's happening all over the place, where everything's happening really here and now. Within the video world is often rendered and delayed, and I think this is great. Finally, it doesn't have to be in musicians and visual people and visual musicians can all come together and form a nice unity again. And that's the end of my presentation.